Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I am a comic book artist, writer, self-publisher, creator. I share this here with you on the internet live every week. If you would like to support this channel, get bonus live stream videos, bonus behind the scenes blog posts and artwork showing my creative process, you can subscribe to my Patreon at patreon.com/GERIMI. That's GERIMI. If you would like to sample some of my comics, I have PDF previews posted online at comics.jeremy.net. Feel free to read and download. And if you'd like to purchase some of my comic books, either print copies or on Amazon Kindle, and they're also available on Comixology, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That will forward you to my Amazon author page. So, today, figure drawing. I missed my figure drawing class last week, and I always feel out of sorts when I miss my figure drawings. I see Ian Rox is already in the chat. He's early. Hey, thanks for popping in. First, so I can't remember what I was drawing, but I was working on some thumbnails for Morningstar this week, as I've been doing nothing but for the past few months. And at some point, I just drew a figure, and I was really not happy with how it came out. And I've said, you know what? I need to do some more, just some figure drawings, just get back to studying the anatomy and the basics. The knee is always something that's given me problems, and this particular drawing is actually hanging above my drawing board because I have a bunch of drawings kind of set aside that are not great, that have problems and anatomical things I need to fix. I know several of them are of knees. But I've got, drawings sitting here to that need to be fixed. I also see Amar's in the chat. Hey, how you doing? He says good afternoon to me and to Ian Rox. Nice to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Point being is I've got several figure drawings clipped together I just have hanging above my drawing table for when I'm going to do a video like this, sitting down, working on fixing bad figure drawings. And in this case, seeing this particular knee here and how bad this drawing is, it's just been driving me nuts. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just sit down and work on this. Because I feel like I've just got this bad drawing staring at me saying, hey, work on me. Do this better. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to start with this drawing of the knee. And I'm going to start by working at just drawing the bones, and then I'm going to slowly add the muscle tissue on top of it. So we'll see how that goes. I've got a few anatomy books laying at the ready in case I need them. I'm going to start by just having the figure by Walt Reed here, because the main thing I want to start with is, and actually this is really what I want to focus on for all of these, is the basic primitive volumes. Because getting these basic volumes in, except I'm going to treat the anatomy the same way, but getting these basic volumes in is, I feel, the thing that I'm missing a lot of the times in figure drawing class. I see Ordinary Lionheart's in the chat. Thanks for dropping by. Good to see you. All right. Enough with the preamble. Let me see here. Now, if I'd had any common sense, I would have pre-marked the pages in this book for the knee. I didn't. I just knew that I was going to grab this book. But let's see here. Shoulders, head and neck, arms. Here we go, the leg and foot. So, unless they have another page that's specifically on the knee, which it doesn't look like they really do. And in fact, this is one of the things that I like to start with in this basic, whenever I'm having trouble with anatomy, is I realize if I can figure out what the bones are doing underneath, that really gives me a much better building structure to draw the actual anatomy on top of. Because again, the figure itself can be broken down to simple basic cylinders, cubes, and spheres. So the challenge is then fitting the anatomy appropriately within those forms. So let me sit this to the side here. In fact, I need to grab a little clip so I can clip the book to the side of the drawing table. Oh, that clip is too small. Find a bigger clip. That will allow me to work without constantly worrying about this drawing falling off of the table. I may end up having to move that anyway as I'm drawing. So comments in the chat. Amir says, today's anatomy studies. Any particular body part or just posing? I think I heard knee. Yes, the knee is what we're working on today. Well, we'll see how it goes, because I may end up drawing this knee multiple times because I'm not happy with it. I may draw it once, get to the heart of the problems, and then move on to whatever is next in this stack of drawings. Let's see here. All right. You know, even though I have all this extra space on this page, I think I'm going to move to a fresh sheet just so I can use the whole sheet here. Let me bring this in a little bit. All right. Amar also says, I think the gesture pose with them adding the basic shapes helps me. If the pose is too hard, I will look for reference, but I tend to be hard-headed and want to push to figure it out. Well, you know, for the longest time, I have been, for most of my drawing career, I've been the same way. Gesture and then just keep working and working and working. But now, the minute I discover that I have a problem, my instinctual question is, my thought is, I don't know what this really looks like. That's what my head tells me if I draw something and it's not coming out right. And my immediate answer to that is, what's the real life thing look like? Whether it means grabbing an anatomy book, posing myself for a photo, looking for photo reference online, you know, whichever of those happens is whatever I'll do. But I immediately, reference is now my go-to to fix basic problems. And I can also see that because I've got the stream up on my tablet, I can see issues have not gotten better. I was hoping that that would change, but it does not seem to be the case. I hate Spectrum cable. So this is all I'm starting with. Just very lightly toned in, basically the same position as this. From here, I'm going to start with the bones. So let me pull this out. There's not really a good place where I can sit it so that I can see both the original drawing and the anatomy book. So I think I may actually have to move the original drawing up above. Oh, I see some more folks in the chat. See Art of Reed in the chat as well. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Amar says, I do a test to see if I can pull off from memory, pull it off from memory, but it could be a bad habit. But I really need to spend more time on environments and technology. He says, in terms of the cable, he says, yes, I have Comcast. That's my only option. It was down for a whole 2 days. For almost $150 a month, that's unacceptable. You know, unfortunately, most people don't seem to have a lot more than one option in their area. Well, I don't even know what you would call it an option, one provider, because an option implies that there's more than one, that you have choice. And most people usually have one place that they can get service in their area. Anyway, you know, that's the idea of trying to draw everything from memory, that goes back to what I was saying about not feeling like realizing that I don't really know what something looks like. The first attempt to actually draw an item, that is me trying to do it from memory. And for the most part, what gets me in trouble is that I have about, let's say about 70% of the anatomy in my head. Let's not be generous. Let's really say 50 to 60%. In terms of anatomical details, there's still lots of stuff that I still draw poorly, don't have, and it's not a matter of having every single muscle name memorized, but it's more of knowing where the muscles are, even if I can't name them, knowing the general shapes of them. And while I know all the major muscle groups, there's plenty of the subtle details that cause me to make a lumpy drawing that I am fighting over. That I kind of am fudging or faking, and when that fudging and faking is what screws me. So I'm looking now at this particular drawing here, and it's really tiny. I might have to switch anatomy books because this is just a tiny shin bone. You know what? Let me grab a different anatomy book because you're really not going to see what I'm trying to draw with this small of a photograph. So no offense on Walt Reed, because Walt Reed is modern volumes in general. But for detailed anatomy, let's go with Atlas of Human Anatomy for the Artist by Peck. So, and we go right to feet, which means knees have to be somewhere nearby. Right foot. Goes from feet to hand, arms, torso, head and neck. We're getting farther and farther away from what I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. The bones. All right, so this is pretty close. This is what we're looking at. Joints of the right knee. So this is a mirror image of what I'm doing because I'm doing the left knee. But it'll be a good, let me see if I can find a photo of it that's just a straight on of the knee and femur together, like the whole joint. I don't see one of the whole Magilla. So let's see here. Well, I could spend forever looking for the right page, or I could just jump in. All right. So we'll use this instead. So it's a little bit more challenging because I'm doing the reverse of this, the opposite knee. And I'm doing it at an angle where the knee is moving away from the viewer. Let's see here. So I see some more comments from Amar. We're talking about the cable stuff, but that's gonna get. I don't know if the general audience is gonna be that interested in that. So that'll be just for me to read, unless you guys really want to read the chat. But in terms of the video, it said you pulling them all out. You should include affiliate links. That's an option. You should get a little kickback for your book promotion you do in your videos. You know what? I used to have an Amazon affiliate account, and for the longest time, I never really had people buying through those links. So I let my affiliate account lapse. You are right. I should reapply for that so that I can get a little something for sending people to get these books. It's been on my to-do list. I've just been buried in thumbnails. So, all right. Starting with this, starting with the tibia. That's the shin bone. So it's a platform that the whole rest of the knee sits on. So it's kind of a triangular shape at the top. And let's pretend I'm going to draw through the leg as though it's see-through. It's almost like I'm going to make this little triangular platform that the knee is sitting on. If I really wanted to overwhelm you with reference, I would go grab my little skeleton, but we're not there yet. I may do it before this is over. So what I'm starting with is just very primitive shapes, like the same thing as like drawing cubes and spheres. That triangular shape at the top. Now mind you, this is the shin, this is below the knee. And it kind of comes to this triangular point here and then comes straight down. In fact, I'm probably drawing this too large. So let's say there's a little triangle at the front of the knee, and this is the bone now, coming straight down. Let me erase that in there. Comes out, sort of squares off. Now, mind you, there's a hollow on the outside, the exterior side, where the fibula, which is it's a long, thin bone. This is the head of it. It's long, thin bone that runs down the outside of the leg, and basically becomes the far end of it that you're not going to see in this drawing, but the bottom end of it becomes the outside of the ankle. So it's kind of similar to how you've got the radius and the ulna. Like it ends up being the way that that it kind of folds over, it becomes that sort of bone. Not that your leg twists to that degree, but it kind of serves the similar function. So now if we just have this bone running down like that, and mind you, I'm not necessarily worried about how this bone does have different planes. And these planes sort of function in the fact that the way that the muscles lay on it and attach to it, that's why it'll be rounder on one side and then flatter on another, depending on which bones fit inside of there. I mean, what muscles fit inside. But for my purposes, that isn't particularly important because I'm really just focused on basic volumes. I'm not worried about doing a photographically realistic drawing. In a way, I'm kind of doing like a contour drawing, but then figuring out what are the volumes within that contour. And I'm trying to stop myself from drawing too much on here because I'm going to end up drawing bones and muscles on top of these bones. So I kind of am keeping this intentionally light. But the next level of bones on top of that. It's almost like I'm drawing from back to front, like as if you were painting a landscape. Did the sky first, then the ground plane, then the mountains, then trees on top of the mountains, then grass in the foreground, trees and rocks in front of those, rolling hills, and just sort of like doing all things from backwards to forward. I'm kind of drawing this skeleton the same way. So now we talk about the femur, which is the long thigh bone. And I'm going to start with just the basic rounded ends of that bone. And again, I'm keeping this thing contained inside of a conceptual cube or a conceptual like see-through box that's sort of containing the volumes I'm trying to describe here. You see this conceptual box that I'm putting here. This is not real anatomy, even remotely. This is more of just, this is what is the outer shape that the anatomical details that I'm going to draw are fitting within. So it's almost like here's a box, and then the cylinder that you would consider the thigh is all coming outside of, is all growing out of that box. So at the top of the box, putting a little circle and having the muscles come out there. Now, I haven't checked the chat in a hot minute, so let me just take a look in case that's blowing up. Let's see here. Oh, Mighty Geek Studio says the anatomy of the leg can be confusing if you have to name the parts. Yeah, yeah, definitely the anatomy of the leg. Well, that's also because you've got these muscles interweaving into each other, and then you have muscles below them. The fact that you've got the muscles side, the lateral, which is towards the okay, really basic anatomical terms. I don't even know how detailed you guys are in terms of your anatomy study, but if you've got a figure, simple stick figure, for the basic anatomy, the north, south, east, west, is that lateral means towards the outside of the body. I'm just mentioning this basic term for anyone who doesn't know. Lateral means towards the outside of the body. So if you say, like when you're looking at this figure, this is the figure's left leg. I mean, it's on my right side, but let's say this is the left leg, and it's the left leg's lateral. The right leg's lateral side is going to be this way. So lateral always means away from the center of the body. Medial for the middle, you know, pretty straightforward. It'd help if I could spell. So medial means towards the middle. So on this, the left leg of the figure, its medial side is in here. For the right one, that's its medial side. That's true for the legs, the arms, the head, the rib cage, just the whole body. And then front, I know that back is dorsal. I forget what front is. Again, I don't use it that often. Usually, because honestly, when I'm in figure drawing class, we just say the front and the back. We do know that the back is the dorsal. I forget what it is for the front. I want to say plantar, but I can't remember. And see, this is one of the reasons why I'm not teaching anatomy full time. It's because I can never remember those details. But the point is that when you look at the leg, what's complicated about the leg is that you've got a muscle group in the front. You have a muscle group in the lateral side that is large in the hips, becomes thin, and then connects down at the bottom again. You also have another thin muscle on the medial side. I mean, on the medial side, that's the sartorius that's trapping those in. And then you've got your hamstrings in the back, the biceps femoris. The same way that we have the biceps in your arm that pull, your hamstrings perform the same function. Imagine if instead of my arm, you're looking at my, imagine if like my elbow was my knee, and you see somebody raising their calf, pulling their leg up. The hamstrings perform the same function. So the upper body muscles and the lower body muscles mirror each other to a large degree in terms of their basic function. Each one has movements and muscles that are specific to them. In terms of the arms versus the legs, there's additional. There's not necessarily a 1-to-1 ratio, but the overall basic function is the same. Let's see here. Oh, Amaris is in the chat. Good to see you. She says she's sitting here with talking to her fiance. Congratulations, you guys. Thanks for stopping by. He says he wants to become a part-time artist until he retires from the military. And he called me a cougar because I'm 6 months older than him. Well, I will tell you that nothing wrong with cougars. My wife is older than me, and I will not say by how much because I'm a gentleman. To be honest, she even said that she is older than me, but no one would be able to tell because she looks like at least 5 to 10 years younger than me. So if anything, people probably think I'm robbing the cradle when she just looks really, really good. So lucky for me. But He says he's really enjoying the live stream. Well, you know what? Congratulations, you guys. Thanks for watching. I'm glad you're enjoying. And thank you for your service. Now, in terms of that's basically what I was going to get into when the comment about the leg anatomy being confusing. It's because you've got muscles on the front, the outside, the back, and then the inside. So on a 360 level, you've got all these muscles all jammed in this tight area. So the quads can be kind of confusing. Now, I'm not going to go through the names of all these different muscles unless it all comes up organically and while talking about fixing this particular drawing, only because me giving you a list of muscles isn't going to make you a better artist. What's going to make you a better artist is the only way you, specifically the viewer, are going to remember these muscles is if you sit down with any anatomy book, whether it's Peck, whether it's this the Walt Reed book I have. Like, as you can see, this book lists the muscles, like the sartorius I said that's running from the inside. It lists that in there. It's got the hamstrings in here, the biceps femoris that I mentioned. So it's got all these different muscles. If you sit down with a sketchbook and an anatomy book and you copy these drawings, not to make exact replicas, but copy them so that you understand the shape and the position of the muscles, that's how you learn anatomy. No one can plant it in your brain. Just looking at the book doesn't help. It's sitting down, copying them in drawings. And then, as well, being able to look at going to actual figure drawing classes and see photographic examples and being able to say, oh, wait, that's what it looks like in a drawing or in an anatomy book. This is what it looks like in real life, because everyone's body is different. So any anatomy book that you get is just a idea of what the muscle should look like. It's going to look different in real life and it's going to look different on every person. And that variation, learning to see and identify those things, is what's going to make you able to compel to depict those things in your actual drawings, understanding those changes and variations. So, yeah, me giving you a list of muscles is not going to help you. Sitting down with an anatomy book, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is because I don't have these muscles memorized as well as I do. So I'm having the book out here as reference for me while I'm practicing them. But it isn't really going to do much good for you guys for me to simply tell you, oh, it's this bone and that bone and the other bone, unless you're going to sit down and draw yourselves, which, you know, I actually don't think that's a bad idea. If you guys were to just go out, just run and grab your sketchbook and an anatomy book and sit down and try to either rework one of your old drawings that you aren't happy with, or if you want to say, all right, here's the pose that Jeremy's drawing, what happens if I try to draw it? I'm looking up at my iPad and it looks like the chat has stalled again. Oh god, internet sucks. Yeah, I really can't tell if the chat has stalled because my house internet is slow, or whether it's still broadcasting. It looks on my end like it's still broadcasting normally. So, you guys let me know whether it's still working or not. Because on my phone that I'm streaming from, it looks like everything's going fine. All right, good. That means that it is just my tablet and my home sucky internet. I would much rather that be the case than you guys getting locked out. All right, so we're back to the bottom of the femur, and it's basically kind of like a yo-yo that's turned inward a little bit. Two rounded wheel shapes. And in the middle, covering the gap between the tibia and fibia, and the bottom of the femur, that's where your actual kneecap lies, the actual bone. And even this, I'm probably drawing darker than I should if I plan to put muscles on top of this. When my figure drawing instructor, Carl Ganass, does demos like this in class, he actually will use different colored charcoal. Like he'll have 2 or 3 pieces of charcoal and he'll do demos in different colors so that we can see, you know, the difference between the skeletal details, the muscular details, and then when he's got muscles that are going to be overlapping each other, he'll draw in different colors so we tell the difference. Now, see, this is one of the reasons also why the thigh can be, why the leg in general can be confusing, is because when you look at, this was something that I felt the Walt Reed book did show very well. Where is that drawing? So, in this book, as you can see, the thigh as a general axis kind of runs in a little bit, the upper thigh, and then it drops straight down. There's a slight turn when you get to the lower leg. But also, that the bone, that the femur, this long bone that I'm drawing, is all the way out to the surface in general. The head of it, from where it attaches to the pelvis, it juts out, and then the bone comes down, but it also curves inward. So what I'm basically describing is, I'm going to flip the direction of that drawing, but I'm going to say, to match this direction, if you've got an outline of an upper leg, and then a kneecap, and then a lower leg, yes, it tends to straighten out here, but it straightens out in the bottom. But also, it moves towards the outside. Or rather, from the top, it moves towards the inside. Now, it doesn't move to the inside, it moves to the middle, realistically. In terms of, here's the shape, here's the middle of it, and then if you go to the upper part where the hips are, it's all the way out to the outer edge. So when I'm drawing the bone in here, that bone isn't going this direction. It's actually going to the right somewhat. In fact, I'm going to erase a little bit of what's in here. Make myself some room. And it's just going to be just a... And I'm even going to put a little bit of cross-axis circles on there, kind of conveying the direction. And that's just more of a concept for me, so I'm aware of which way the bone is moving. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. Okay. Amaris says, I have a book recommendation for running your dream business. It's called Picture Your Prosperity and Making Money by Ellen Rogan and Lisa Koenig. This book can be applied to running an art business. Well, cool. Thanks for the recommendation. I'll check it out. Let's see here. Oh, I need to go back to this book now. Jumping from book to book. So at this point, this is basically what the bones are doing. So now I'm going to shift to drawing muscles on top of it. Now, let's start by settling down the kneecap, which attaches to both the bottom. The bottom attaches to the tibia. The top attaches to the femur. And as the leg bends, it'll slide up and down, so that basically it'll be able to remain covering this gap. Because that is the purpose of the kneecaps, to cover that gap, protect it from damage. Now, I guess we can flip to the muscle section of this book. And it's funny because what this page has is exactly what I was having trouble with. The difference between a contracted knee and a relaxed knee, and the way that the muscles kind of lay down over it. Well, hell, this book has basically examples of exactly what I'm talking about. The kneecap being attached to both the femur as well as the tibia. So the book shows both of those examples. All right, so the actual muscles here. Now, there is deep tissue below the actual surface muscles. And I'm not going to get into the deep tissue. What I'm going to start with is another conceptual line. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line that should represent, that is just to represent separating the side from the front. So let's say that this is the front of the knee. This is the side of the knee. If I follow that up, we'll make this the front. Now see, the side is going to get real narrow and you can actually see the back from the side, because already that was one of the things, again, the complexities of it. You're going to see the bicep femoris very clearly from the from a 3/4 view of a leg. So let's see here. Now the quadriceps as a whole takes up the front. And that's the thing, it also kind of spills over to the side. So let's say, yeah, that's one of the challenges. This conceptual line I put here, the quadriceps as a whole already spills over to the side. So one of the front muscles, which is the vastus lateralis, again, lateralis for the outside. In fact, this is probably confusing the way I'm explaining it. Let's start with, if this mass is the quadriceps, there is a muscle that is the fourth muscle, because quadriceps is 4, and that muscle is underneath the major 3 that you see. The major 3 that you see is the rectus femoris that runs down the center. There's the vastus lateralis, which is on the outside, and that one does not extend. It extends further down than the rectus femoris, but it doesn't extend over the knee. And then there's the vastus medialis. That one, medialis for towards the inside, that one does extend down. And it comes over the knee a little bit. So you've got 1, 2, 3 muscles, and there's a fourth one that's underneath. And those make up the quadriceps.
and there's a very prominent ligament that comes down, and basically it joins the ligament that covers the knee. So in a way, it's almost like the end of the rectus femoris is, well, not in a way, it's directly, all three of these sort of merge. The rectus femoris kind of merges on top, but then on the tissue, the ligaments that wrap around the knee, the other two muscles also merge into those. So just drawing the basic bones that are on top of there. And like I said, the vastus lateralis, if I were to make a tone here separating the front from the side, when we're talking about them being confusing, it is a front muscle, but it wraps around the side. So this muscle is already on the side plane. Half of it's on the side plane. And you know, your mileage may vary depending on how muscular or slender or how much body fat the particular person you're drawing is carrying. So let's see. Let me pop by the chats. Amar says the rectus femoris sounds like a prehistoric creature. Return of the rectus femoris. Ba, 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 ba. Okay. Now, on the exterior of the leg, the lateral side, there is. Oops, drop my eraser. So this side view shows an area. It's called the iliotibial band, and it's a long, narrow muscle that comes out from an area that starts called the tensor fasciae latae. That's basically the muscle that covers the hip. Pardon me, the hip joint, and basically it sits in between the glutes, the gluteus medius and the gluteus maximus. It sits in between the butt muscles and then the muscles that are in the front and the lower part of the abdomen. So it's sort of like the side panel. It's the side piece of the thigh. So the way that this is drawn, you can't really. I don't have the hip in this drawing. So the hip would be up here, just above where I am. But this muscle comes down into this iliotibial band. That's this long, narrow. It's very flat, and it gets even narrower as it gets towards the bottom. But you notice that that rectus, not rectus femoris, the vastus lateralis on the outside. You can see that's all underneath here. So it's really a muscle that wraps, like I said, it wraps around the side. You can see it very visibly from the front, but it's also covering that as it runs down the side. So this comes down, and when it gets to the kneecap, it wraps around, and there's a large area. Not a large area, but that triangle that's underneath the kneecap at the top of the tibia. The tensor fasciae latae comes and wraps around that. The biceps femoris come around, and actually, before I misspeak, I need to look up what the attachment points are for the biceps femoris, because I don't want to be wrong about that. I'm going to be telling you wrong shit. Well, see, that's part of the point. This is where I think I started realizing I think I know the anatomy, and then I realized wait a minute, am I sure about that? So I'm gonna look that up real quick while I've got you guys. Sorry, I realized I was looking down, talking at the book, and not talking into the camera. So to the rectus femoris. Omar says directed by Roger Corman. Says the movie he'd create on the back of the 50s and 60s. Yes, very much so. This is kind of what the conversation we had earlier about trying to just figure stuff out instead of going and looking for reference. I could just draw the biceps femoris and have it wrapping around the front and attaching as well. So before I go into, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a book instead and look up exactly where the attachment point is, so that when I tell you, I'm telling you the correct thing. So this running down here, this is all the iliotibial band. That is the side. Now the biceps femoris attaches at the top. It attaches to the pelvis underneath the buttocks. So it's almost kind of the same way that the deltoid covers the shoulders. It's like the deltoids are the buttocks of the arm. But like I said, even from a 3/4 view, you're going to see the biceps femoris. And then it's going to come down. And the attachment point. Now let me see if it actually shows it here in this book. Oh, it's got a whole chart here. And it says of the lower extremity, it says origin and insertion. So this is not visually interesting to look at, but I'm going to read it real quick so I can just know exactly where it is. So the flexor group of the leg, that's the lower leg. Let's see the upper leg. The hamstrings, the biceps femoris. So the insertion point, which is where it attaches at the end, at the end, it says that for the biceps femoris, there's a long head and a short head. The long head attaches to the head of the fibula, so it actually attaches, not wrapping around the front like the plantar fascia latae. It actually attaches around the back, which makes sense because its whole job is to pull this back, to pull this so that your knee can bend. So one attaches out here to the fibula, and the other one attaches to the tibula. And now, see, that sounds like a very simple, well, no duh, that makes sense. But this is what happens when you're drawing and you don't have your anatomy really internalized. Sometimes like on one hand, I could sit here and be embarrassed that I'm all, oh wait, of course it attaches to the tibia and doesn't wrap around the front. But I'd rather sit here, take the time to figure out what is it really doing, and then draw that correctly, as opposed to just sitting here and trying to fit and then telling you things that are wrong. So this is the reason why having anatomy books, having reference is important. And there will be a point someday when I think I will have all this memorized and not have to even think about it. But, that requires, like I said, spending hours with the anatomy book. And I honestly don't do this as much as I should. I'm doing it with you guys now, honestly, to get myself more into the habit of it. Maybe this will be a thing where once a month, we'll do an anatomy study. We'll sit down with an anatomy book together, and I'll just go into a deep dive of me just studying from a book and saying, oh, this attaches here, this attaches here, this does that. Maybe it'll be a Patreon exclusive or something, but it's something that I do definitely need to do more of, is just sitting and studying with the book. So let's go back to the other muscles in the lower part of the leg. So coming down the front is the tibialis. And this I'm drawing directly from the book. I totally did not remember what the name of this muscle was. In fact, there's a whole set of muscles here, and the only one that I actually remember is the peroneus longus, which is the one that's on the outside. And basically, it's right before the outside of the calf. But again, I tend to draw like the whole mass of just the. When I'm drawing just in figure drawing class, I'll draw this whole mass of the calf muscle, knowing that there's other muscles wrapped in around this. So the peroneus longus, much like the iliotibial band, runs down the side of the thigh. The peroneus longus runs down the side of the lower leg. And it runs down to the ankle. When it gets to the ankle, it sort of turns in around the foot. Now let me look up what is the muscle that's on the inside. Well, really, according to the anatomy book, you're just seeing on the inside. You're either seeing the bone of the shin, or you're just seeing the. There's a flat muscle that lays underneath your calf called the soleus. So you're really just seeing that. And to be honest, you can see the soleus either on the on both sides, underneath the calf. So, what I've done here is I've taken let me grab the figure drawing. This drawing that I've done, I've taken it and basically done it in an anatomical breakdown of what was going on muscularly and skeletally. Now that said, I realize what I'm missing is this softening of a surface that's resting on top of it. And I think I mentioned that they call attention to that in this book, in the Peck book. Okay, so in the Peck book, it calls out an area, and this is something I specifically have to give credit to Carl Ganas for, because even though it's in this book, it's something that he calls out in his class that I had never noticed or even was aware that existed before. But it's an area called the Band of it's pronounced Band of Rocher, but it's Richer. So they have it in this book here. And it is a narrow muscular band that when it's relaxed is the reason why you see the muscles kind of lay down a little bit more. And when it pulls tight, you get, when the quads flex, you get that it basically disappears. So that was really what was throwing me off, was that this muscle was relaxed even though it was standing back and had weight resting on it. And I didn't really convincingly convey that that band of Rocher. So that's why that drawing was troubling me so much. So let's see where we are time-wise. We're at 55 minutes. I think I'm just going to go back and now redraw. See, this is the thing. You do all this reference, you look all these things up, and then you put the reference away and you try again. So now, with this original drawing and this reference drawing, I'll put these up here. Now actually, it'll be better, because you guys can't really see it up there. It'll be better if I have them sort of side by side. So now, I am just going to take a few minutes, and I'm just going to try again with my own reference that I generated from anatomy books. So if I were in a figure drawing class and I were trying to draw this, I would start with the basic direction of the thigh, basic direction of the lower leg, blocking in that kneecap, and I already want to start paying special attention to that tissue resting over the kneecap. I don't want to get too caught up in it, too carried away. And I think for me, what helps is really trying to think about constant, simple volumes. Like, here's a very simple cube, but it's a cube that I'm drawing in tones. In fact, I'm going to make this darker just because it might be hard to see on a camera. But just constantly trying to think about what's facing the light, what's facing away from the light, and what's facing. What's facing the light, what's facing away from the light, what is halftone? That's what I'm trying to think about as I'm drawing these basic forms and blocking them in. And after I finish this this version of this third time drawing it, we'll probably call it a day. So if you guys have any last minute questions you want to ask, now is the time to get them in. I'm going to pause for a moment right now and take a look at the chat. Mighty Geek Studio says, that does it. This is why simple shapes are an artist's best friend. Yes, true. I would say that the only thing I would add to that statement is that sometimes people think about simple shapes and they think only about the outline and they don't think about the volumes. And when I'm thinking of simple shapes, what I'm really thinking of are simple forms, the building blocks that are going to make up the whole that you're trying to draw and express and convey. But you know, the very good thing about this exercise that I did today with you guys is, like, for instance, the fact that I didn't instinctively say, oh, the biceps femoris attaches to the back of the tibia and the back of the fibula, even though that's very common sense. it's pointing out weaknesses that I have in my drawing. And, it's just between you guys. I don't mind being vulnerable with you guys here, watching me online. But in the larger sense, you can't be afraid of your weaknesses, because if you don't have your weaknesses pointed, if you don't point out your own weaknesses, other people will point them out for you. And if you aren't willing to do the work to find them, then you aren't going to grow and progress the way that you want. So, you can't necessarily be afraid of finding out you're doing things wrong. I wish I were that open-minded in other aspects of my life, as my wife would attest. I can be stubborn and hard-headed as the rest of you, but when it comes to drawing, and you know what, that's another thing on a personal level. I'm trying to work towards being less stubborn and hard-headed in just my personal life, and being more open-minded to finding solutions to problems. But my overall point is that the way that you improve is by facing these demons, facing these things that don't look right, that aren't right, things that are gaps in your knowledge. It's okay to say, oh, there are gaps in my knowledge. Pretending that you know everything doesn't help you, and it doesn't help the people around you. So it was very helpful for me talking through this with you guys, and me being forced to be more aware of places where I need to grow and study even more. And the thing I actually need to do, looking at this drawing, is I need to ease up on the musculature, because I realize the whole thing that threw me is just how relaxed that the tissue is that's around the knee. And I'm already starting to draw in too much anatomy, which, not slamming Bern Hogarth, but that is something that he gets criticized for, is he draws the muscles as if all of them are flexing once. And even now, as I'm looking at this, I can see marks that I made. Like, in here, I can see that I was drawing the iliotibial band wrapping around the front. But I wasn't aware, even though that is something that's anatomy that I knew existed, I don't think I was consciously thinking about it as I was drawing. And that's one of those things that just a brief second of, and that is the purpose of learning anatomy, is when you're drawing something and you're just sort of putting down shapes, the fact that you're like, oh wait, I recognize this muscle, this bone, this condyle, this piece of anatomy, can help you shape it more, that you're like, oh wait, I know what this vague shape I'm drawing is, and now that I know what it is, I can clarify with my knowledge of anatomy to make it read like that thing that I know what it is, even instead of just drawing. If you draw exactly what you see, anatomy can be very confusing. It can be very indistinct and just lumps and shapes, and you're like, I have no idea what the hell this is. Whereas when you know conceptually what a muscle is, what the name of that muscle is, or where it separates from another muscle, how it bends, where its origin or insertion is, then you can shape. You can just add a little bit of detail to the thing that you're looking at. If you're in a figure drawing class and you're drawing from a model, you can add just enough detail to suggest, oh wait, this is what that shape really is, and this is what that muscle is really doing. And those are the things that allow you to transform an observational drawing that can be a little bit muddled and confusing into a beautiful figure drawing that is drawn with knowledge and experience and understanding of anatomy and form. Now, one thing I will tell you is that this drawing was drawn with the knee more down and away. It was in more forced perspective. So that is something, again, things that I notice. This is something that I should have caught when I first started drawing this drawing, making sure that it's in the same position. Now, it is possible that I can shape this a little bit more to just drive the knee more towards the center. The problem is when you do stuff like that in a drawing, you tend to get wonky shapes because part of the drawing will agree with what you are correcting, and then part of it is just going to look weird. It's tough to make very simple corrections that drive the whole knee back into the correct shape. And that's one more thing, again, that I remember looking at in the Peck book, that he specifically was drawing not just the relaxed muscles around the knee, but he went into just how the knee looks when it's relaxed. And I think I didn't really get too much detail on this outer leg when I originally drew it. Or the lower leg, I mean. Apologies. Yeah, I think that for the most part, it was not so heavily shadowed that I couldn't see what was going on, but it was more... It was less distinct. So I'm just gonna lightly put some tone in there and not draw too much detail. Just put a little bit more of a coarse shadow in the area where that point of the shin bone would be. Pointing away from the light, because this form is turning around and turning towards the light. So this area that I'm drawing, the shin bone, is facing the ground. It's facing away from the light more than other parts. Of the lower leg. So yeah. Now mind you, I spent more time on this than I did in this drawing, because in class this was probably a 5-minute pose that I had to draw, and I just spent probably more than double that, over 10 minutes drawing this. So it isn't necessarily fair to compare this drawing to that drawing, but, and again, it's not even a photographic study per se. Probably put a little bit more tone in this. Well, if this side is the underside, the other thing I need to put in there to really make it read correctly is that this, and now I actually understand why this tone is in here the way it is. It's because all of this should be facing away. And you know what? Now the whole thing kind of makes sense. I'm drawing something that's facing away from the light, and I'm drawing the underside of the thing facing away from the light, but then it also turns a little bit and then goes underneath that piece of the muscle that's relaxed above it. So now, having looked at both an anatomy book, having looked at both the muscles and the skeleton of an anatomy book, I've got a better understanding of what I was trying to draw here. Probably a little bit of tone down the middle to just sort of unify this underside. Pull out a little bit of light on this side and this side. The eraser ain't just for erasing, it's a drawing tool. It's there to help you. I still have more work to do in terms of studying the anatomy of the legs, but overall, I definitely feel like I learned something about why this drawing was wrong. So let's see here. Some last comments in the chat. Amar says that's why primitives are added to every art program and 3D program, gesture, shapes, contour, value. Mighty Geek Studios says, never be afraid of honest criticism. It's the path you'll need to get better. Amar says, be water, my friend. Great words of Bruce Lee. Nanda Creation says, HLO. I guess it's just hello. It's abbreviated hello. So hello. Thank you for stopping by. If this is your first time in the video, please hit the subscribe button so you can see when I have new videos and new live streams posted. Amar says, I think Burn does that to show them. We're talking about drawing the muscles all flexed at once. I think Burn does that to show the muscles without the skin of it. Could just be his way of showing what muscles will flex at certain positions, or what muscles will do at certain positions, I think is what he was saying. Yeah, no, that's true. And Hogarth, the Dynamic Anatomy book, for me, I think anyone who's into comics, that's usually the first anatomy book they start with. And to be honest, that's probably better because Bridgman, you kind of have to already know stuff about the figure in order to really get a use out of Bridgman. Like, I didn't like Bridgman when I was first shown his work, and now he's one of my favorites in terms of like him showing the primitive forms and really understanding what the figure's doing. I think it's just the fact that anatomy instructors that I've talked to are critical of the fact that showing a muscle that is, when you draw an arm like this, and you're drawing both the biceps and the triceps flexed, they have great criticism of that because a flexed tricep looks very different from a relaxed tricep. And to draw any set of muscles where both sets are, the flexors and the extensors are both flexed at the same time, gives an unrealistic concept of what the muscles look like. And that's the criticism that I've seen of his work. And as a student, I agree that while his drawings may clarify things, if it clarifies it but gives you an unrealistic sense of what the muscles do or how what their forms are, then it's probably better to try and do drawings that really clarify. I've always thought maybe do an anatomy book where you've got the exact same pose. Well, you can't really do the exact same pose, but to do one pose of the muscle flexed and showing the set of it, basically showing like forearm and focusing on the biceps, show biceps flexed, and then show the exact same position next to it showing triceps flexed, so that way you can see this is what it looks like when this is relaxed, and this is, you know what I'm saying, showing the pose and counter pose, the flexed version and the extended version of each muscle next to each other. If I live to be 70 and I know so much about anatomy that I can teach anatomy, then maybe I will make an art book that is just that. Flexion and extension. That'll be the name of my anatomy book when I'm an old man. So thank you guys again for showing up for this live stream, spending time with me. I hope that you got a lot out of this because I got a lot out of it too. Being forced to examine my own work helps me learn. So just by talking to you guys, I'm learning. But yes, if you would like to get additional live streams, see more behind the scenes on my comic book creative process, and see my comics. Oh, I started running Morningstar as a webcomic on my Patreon. And I'm also going to be sharing it as a webcomic on my newsletter. However, the Patreon is getting 4 pages a week, so it's running weekly. The newsletter gets 4 pages a month because I only post a newsletter monthly. So if you want to see stuff early, then you have to go to the Patreon and subscribe. But that's patreon.com/GERIMI. So you'll get Morningstar as a webcomic. You'll get more behind the scenes videos. I'm actually planning to put together a chart on 9-panel grids as a compositional tool, and I'm going to post that there first. So it'll be early access for that chart to download as a little cheat sheet. So all that and more is on my Patreon. You can go and look at my comics at comics.jeremy.net. And you can buy my comics in print and digital at amazon.jeremy.net. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining me. That's it. Go be creative.